Hey folks, Sealer here. It's Friday, November 6th. Wargaming posted yesterday to the World of Warships development blog some proposed changes to attack aircraft. These are the aircraft that launch rockets. All of this is in closed testing. It's all essentially a concept test. Wargaming hasn't stated whether these changes will even make it into the game, and even if they were, exactly when these changes might come in. Treat this at this point as just early notification that this is something Wargaming is looking at. So the nature of the changes are, well, feel a little bit contradictory. On one side, they're intended to help improve the opportunity for targets of these attacks to potentially avoid attacks, especially for destroyers. But at the same time, they're describing these changes as intended to help carrier players carry out rocket attacks. So again, a little bit of contradiction. Let's read through, or I'll read through the bullet points here. Maybe some of you experienced carrier players might draw a more accurate or complete picture in your mind as to what some of these things might mean. So feel free to leave your comments below for the video. So the first point is that the length of attack animation would be increased by 2.5 to 3 times. Rockets would be launched with a delay after the left mouse button is pressed. So it doesn't say here how long that delay would be. It's not entirely clear to me whether that delay is intended to help the carrier player in terms of lining up their attack, or whether it's intended to help the target of the attack potentially avoid the attack altogether. It kind of feels like it would be the latter. I'm just not sure. Again, without any visuals or any animation, it's hard to sort of picture in our mind exactly what this would look like. The second point is the speed at which crosshairs would reduce is increased. Well, that's not very well expressed. I'll come back to that in a second. And then secondly, the penalty to the reduction of the reticle under maneuvering is lowered. So the way I read this, the first half at least, is that the reticle, the aiming reticle, will reduce more quickly and therefore make that targeting more efficient for the carrier player. And then the second part, which is also going to help the carrier player, is to reduce the penalty or lower the penalty under maneuvering. So today, if you are coming in for attack and you click the left mouse button to initiate your attack and you start maneuvering, your reticle will not reduce in size, or it reduces very slowly and therefore reduces the accuracy of your attack. So both of these are, in my opinion, are expected, should help the carrier player carry out the attack. Now, the third part here is very interesting. This is completely new. So markers would be shown the exact spot where each rocket would hit. And this marker, or these markers, would be visible not only to the carrier player, but also to the target of the attack, the target surface ship. So clearly having the markers for the carrier player means that the carrier player can presumably better aim their rockets. That's particularly useful when going against better armored targets, where you're trying to get your rockets up into superstructures or maybe into bows and sterns, where they will actually penetrate and do damage. That is presumably also useful when going after destroyers, to make sure that you're actually going to hit part of the destroyer, since they have a much smaller profile. But obviously also knowing, if you're the target of these attacks, where the rockets are expected to land before they hit you, might give you some intuition as to how to maneuver to avoid the attack. And I think that's a key element of this this information. So they mention here that the change to the shape of the attack aircraft crosshair, or the reticle, was modified in 097. They now all have the horizontal reticle, and this gave destroyers a possibility to stick to common tactics to avoid rocket attacks. So a destroyer player didn't, well, as of 097, no longer had to remember, okay, is the attack reticle vertical or horizontal for the carrier that's attacking me? They now have they always know that the rocket attack reticle is going to be horizontal, and therefore the carrier player ideally is going to come in on the broad side of the destroyer, and that generally means the destroyer should try to turn bow in to minimize the number of rockets that might hit them. So that was the change in 097. Now, during the test, this test for this, the intention is that ships, especially destroyers, would have more time to react and make it easier for them to lower or completely evade damage from rockets with a, quote, correct maneuver, although there's no statement in here as to what, quote, correct means. And the changes to the crosshair will make an attack run easier for the carrier player. So my read here is that the delay in this first point here, the delay in initiating or launching the rockets after the left mouse button is clicked is intended to mostly help the target, especially the destroyers, have more time to react, and that's the term, the expression they use here. So that's how I read this now more clearly. But then obviously some of these other changes are intended to make the carrier's execution of the attack more easier to do. Again, this kind of feels contradictory, right? If you're going to make the attack method more effective for the carrier player, shouldn't that make it easier for them to hit the target? But at the same time, they're making changes that are supposed to make the target easier to, or allow the target to avoid the attack altogether. So again, like I said, there's no visuals or animation here, so it's really hard to sort of picture in my mind what those end up looking like. So the bottom line here, and that this is what they mention at the end of the post, is that all of this is in closed testing. They say if the results are positive, and again, it's Wargaming's decision as to what positive is. Then they will offer more detailed information about this concept. So we don't, like I said, we're not going to have any more detail until they get further into their test. And then all of the information, obviously, in the blog is preliminary, so everything is subject to change, and like I said, may not even be implemented at all. So those are the updates from this article. Again, like I said, if you are an experienced carrier player, feel free to leave your comments below. Give me your thoughts about how you think this might affect your gameplay. But similarly, for those who are maybe frustrated or have an opinion on aerial attacks from rockets, especially you destroyer players, let me know your thoughts as well. Again, no animation, no visuals here, so it's a little hard for us to draw conclusions. But we right now have to sort of take it at Wargaming's word that they're trying to sort of strike some better balance and counterbalance or counter actions for targets of these attack aircraft. So, like I said, let me know what your thoughts are below. I hope everybody has a great weekend, and as always, we hope to see you out there on the virtual seas, and we wish you happy sailing.